Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Miss Lily.
Everybody doing well?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
I won't complain.
Good. Hey, Colleen.
Hey, everybody. It's good to see y'all.
Yep.
I will let y'all know right now, I've been on hold for an hour and a half on a work-related thing. If sometime they
Hey.
call me back, I will have to take that call because I refuse to hang up at this point. I'm going to beat them. I swear I am. So,
That's patience right there, Colleen. That's patience.
well, they will not win. I am going to make them answer my questions. No.
Good for you.
So just so you know, that would be the only reason I'll be stepping away.
That's resilience.
It's pure Irish stubbornness is what it is.
Hey, I was trying to make it sound better.
Well, and you are very sweet, but total stubbornness on my part.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
You're a little low, Linnea.
I'm a little low.
Yeah, your volume's low. I don't know whether that's your
Okay.
voice or just the volume, but I can hear you, but it's just the volume's low.
Am I low to everybody else?
A little bit.
Okay. Let me try.
But you're trying to be like fancy or something.
Hello. Is that better or no?
Yeah, it's a little better. You might just want to just force your voice out a little more. But we can hear you.
Is that better?
Yes, there you go.
Yes.
Okay.
You could break into song or something and maybe that'll warm your vocal cords up.
Oh, don't encourage me. Huh? Let me. All right, you guys. So do you want to give it a few more minutes or you want to go ahead and get started?
Let's get started.
Let's get started.
I agree.
Who's that? Whose iPad? Is that you, Keith?
Yeah, that's me. I was supposed to change my name, but it didn't work. Sorry.
Okay.
He's known as iPad today.
So hope everybody, is that better? Is that better? Okay.
Yeah, we hear you good.
Okay. All right. So I sent out an email with some attachments. Did everybody get that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if you could do me a favor and make sure you sign in. I sent a link for everybody to sign in for the meeting so we have attendance. And I will also post that in the chat box. Do you like my cool little fancy screenshot?
I do.
I tried. So I'm going to go ahead and start recording now. All right. So today we have a lot of great stuff to do. Ooh, who sent me? Did you want to go ahead and do your little introduction, Chief? And then
My little introduction.
Your little
Let me make sure I'm
intro.
not muted. Okay, I'm not muted. So just thanks to everybody for joining us today as we continue to work together to make Kinston a better place. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just sent a chat to everybody, but it's likely I'll have to be leaving this meeting early. We'll see how that goes. But Major Goyette, Captain Ravis, and Miss Thigpen will continue representing for the police department if I have to go.
Okay.
And that's my icebreaker. So let's move forward.
Okay. All right. So everybody, I like this idea. Everybody send their little introduction through the chat box. I think that's cool. It'll save us a little time. So if other people would like to do that, that'd be great. All right. So our plan was to do today was to go over some of the stuff that we need to get done in the next 6 months, and also finish up on some analysis that we were starting the process on. And I think that's pretty much it. Anything else that we needed to talk about today that was on anybody's mind? Here's our agenda. I guess not. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do today, just really quickly, I wanted to do an icebreaker. We haven't done one in a really long time. And I wanted to give us a chance to kind of check into current events, but also give us a chance to have something a little different to talk about, but that will kind of focus us on our work. So recently, as many of you all know, we had 2 civil rights pioneers pass away last week. And so I thought it would be really great for us to hear from one of them and get a perspective on what civil rights work was for them. So this is John Lewis. And I'm gonna just play, it's a very short video, and then I'd like us to just reflect on it for a few minutes, and then we'll start the meeting officially. Is that okay? Okay.
Organized.
Can you hear it?
More than 250,000 people to march in Washington. And we all had to prepare a speech.
You can't hear it?
No, not really.
No.
No? All right, let's see if Linnea can make this work. Oh, it's a lot of people in here that just popped in that fast. Nice people. Let's try it again. Let's try it now.
We started organizing. We were able to bring more than 250,000 people to march in Washington. And we all had to prepare a speech. I was very young, 23 years old, had all of my hair and a few pounds lighter.
I have the pleasure to present to this.
When A. Philip Randolph said, I now present to you young John Lewis, the National Chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee.
Brother John Lewis.
I looked to my right. I saw hundreds and hundreds of young people who had been involved during the early days. Looked straight ahead. I saw this sea of humanity. Then I looked to the left. I saw young black men and young white men up in the trees, trying to get a better view. And then I said to myself, well, this is it. And I looked straight ahead again. And something said to me, go for it. And I opened my mouth and I started speaking.
We march today for jobs and freedom, but we have nothing to be proud of. The hundreds and thousands of our brothers are not here, but they're receiving starvation wages or no wages at all. Those who have said be patient and wait, we must say that we cannot be patient. We do not want our freedom gradually, but we want to be free now. The time will come when we will not confine our marching to Washington. We will march through the South, through the streets of Jackson, through the streets of Danville, through the streets of Cambridge, through the streets of Birmingham. We must say, wake up, America, wake up, for we cannot stop, and we will not and cannot be patient.
Hi, YouTubers. I'm excited to give you.
Hello? Were you able to see that time?
Yes.
Okay. So just really quickly, I wanted to give everybody a chance that feels like it to reflect on the video and what do you think about it and how it applies to the work we're doing today. Those people who just joined us or have joined us kind of late, please do a little introduction in the chat box so people know who you are. And we just looked at a little video and we're just gonna do a few seconds of icebreaker before we get started officially. Please unmute yourselves if you have something to say. Yolanda, did you say you are never too old or young to fight for justice or for what is right? Great. Anybody else? Thoughts? I thought it was interesting that the cities' names could have been a lot of different cities now. What he was asking for, what he was concerned about. Anybody else? Oh, come on, don't be shy. The point is for us to get kind of into the moment together. Are you all there? I'm not hearing anything. Do I need to unmute everybody? Hello? I'm here by myself?
I can't tell if somebody was talking or if that's a background noise.
I think it's a background noise.
Okay. It's an amazing life and amazing time.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Lewis was a part of and lived through and was throughout his life. It's just something for all of us to glean from.
Yeah. Powerful person. Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
Now.
Okay.
Okay. It's just listening to that, and I've saw that before many times. Just reminds me of the call to justice. That people have, human beings have inalienable rights, right? Constitutional rights. We have all of these things in place, and that what Brother Lewis was saying, what spoke to me is that we have to remember, that this push towards justice, it's one that takes time, and we have to endure, but we have to move in a way where we respect all life, all human life, and that we are called to ensure that the other has partakes in or is allowed to access to those rights, those constitutional rights, humanity, and just the work of justice that's needed continuously. So I'll say that, and that's it.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. The other thing I thought was really interesting, I'm going to let other people okay, to say, is that he was a very young man at the time. And a lot of the people that we are working with, they could be John Lewis. He was only 23 at that time. He had already been doing freedom rides and a whole lot of other things. So when we talk about young people or what their contributions are, or as we listen to their voice, or we should be listening to their voice, we should know that they really can be changing the world literally at the same time. So, all right, is that okay?
Yes. Me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Go ahead. Either one of you.
Okay, I was thinking about the kind of physical pain that they had to endure during those times. And just from that, we're still kind of like enduring pain. A lot of it is not physical. Some of it is psychological, emotional, still pain. But from the things that they've done, they put things in place that we can have better equal opportunity if we would do the voting, you know, get on out and do the voting and do the things that we can do to make that happen. So I would love for us to continue what people have died for, shed blood and beaten, battered for. If we would go ahead and continue that with the method that we have today, we could get further along. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Linnea, this is Judge James. Can you hear me?
I can.
Good. I apologize if there's some background noise. I'm actually driving, so sorry for that. But I think what struck me about John Lewis's statements and the piece that you just played, in addition to the fact that it's, you know, so profound, such an important time in our history, the striking part is that it seems like we're repeating it to some extent, because here we are in 2020 and there's all these sorts of really important social issues and protests going on across the country. And I'm thinking about the moms who locked arms in Portland, Oregon, to protect their children, who were out in the streets protesting civil unrest and that sort of thing. And they faced quite a bit of opposition from government forces. But I think the interesting thing and the inspiring thing is that now, more than ever, people, and I think especially young people, are interested in knowing about their constitutional rights and interested in learning how to protect their rights and just what their rights are and how they can assert their rights. So I think it's an interesting time and a really appropriate time to be doing what we're doing now with the DMC work and the RID. So I think it's great timing.
I agree. All right. Does anybody else have anything on their heart that they want to share real quick, or you ready to move on? I just wanted to give everybody a chance. I thought it was powerful for a lot of different reasons. I thought it would be nice to pay homage to those that have paid for me. Anybody else? Okay. All right. So let's move on. Thank you for indulging me. So we are going to look at the agenda, and if you're willing to give me what do you call it, a second, I will. So I'm going to ask Chief Dilday, if you don't mind, I'm going to flip the agenda, and we are going to have a conversation about what we're going to do next first, and then finish up with the analysis, if that's okay.
Surely.
Okay, that way we can get the housekeeping stuff done. So I have had several people reach out to me individually and collectively since our last meeting about catching up and making sure other people kind of know what's going on or what we've been doing in the past, so that people have good perspective on things. And I've also had several people, have just asked me general questions about the data and stuff like that, and how we're going to go forward with things that have the way things are changed with COVID. And then I got to see Keith last week. We did an exchange of papers, the socially distant few minutes. and we talked also about this. So I thought I would give us a chance to check in about how some things have changed in regards to COVID and how we expect them to impact our work doing the grant. So we have several different things that we are obligated to do as part of the grant. And then we have some things that that we need to do just to kind of keep things moving, like how we're meeting, what do we need to do about meetings to make sure that we're engaging people that we want to engage and stuff like that. So I just want to give us a chance to have some conversation about that. So let's start with how COVID is impacting our work and what our future work will be. And so that is agenda item number 4. No, 5. It should be 5, I think. No, 6. Okay. Thoughts?
For me,
Start by from an outreach perspective, COVID is limited, all of us, as far as our ability to go out and interact and proactive interaction with youth or any members of our community, henceforth the Zoom meetings and things like that. So it's we have to be respectful of everyone and our health, and that's the key thing, but there's also a mental health issue to it too. So we need to be engaged, and we have to find creative ways to do that. School's going to start up pretty soon. We still don't have 100% what that's going to look like, but it will provide us opportunities that we haven't had basically since March, because we will have young people, not all together all at one time, but we will have groups of young people that will be able to get in front of. Our middle school will have a new principal this year, and we'll have a new school resource officer this year. So opportunities for just doing the right things as we move forward there. Our high school is going to be the same principal and same school resource officer, but it's opportunities in that setting that we aren't really going to have until COVID lets up on us.
Okay.
Anybody else, please join in.
This is Colleen. As far as guardian ad litem is concerned, I'm very concerned because, of course, our work hasn't stopped. We still get abused and neglected children, but because there's not as many people able to check on them. Our guardians, for example, are doing most of their work remotely. We are having some concerns about our kids falling through the cracks. So in a way, I'm really glad school is going to start back in some fashion, because I want to make sure all our children are safe. I'm on a state committee to work towards allowing some in-person visits for volunteers who feel comfortable with it, not making anybody have visits that aren't comfortable. But I have a lot of volunteers who are like, come on, let me go out. I'm happy to, socially distance, but still video or visit. And I think that that's really, really important. I think the biggest thing that concerns me as chair of our child abuse prevention team and our LICC and being part of our fatality team and, just a number of different teams, I just don't feel like we're as effective meeting virtually as we are in person. And so I worry about that. But I also know that there's a reason and we all need to be safe. And, but I hope we get to a point where we can have more in-person contact as soon as we can, if we can do it in a safe way. So
Anybody else?
Linnea,
Yes.
as far as, my presentations are concerned, I've done a virtual one. So I just wanted the chief to know, I've done a virtual presentation with the community in Wake Forest, and it actually went really well. The primary thing was just promoting it. I think I had about 15 people. I invited some folks from Kinston. So just so you'll know, it can work. The only thing that we did differently than I had 2 presentations, 1 hour each. So an hour and a half for a virtual presentation may be something that we can look into, or either, wherever it could be safe for social distancing. But the virtual presentations, the one that I've done, I was pretty satisfied with, and it can work out the kinks, and also be able to send out the pre-surveys, the pre and post surveys, to make sure I'm in compliance with the grant. So we've, somebody that works with me has already done that.
Okay,
so that's something that can be done. Haven't gotten it back yet, but it's ready as a Google Doc, I think is what it is. So we'll send it out pre and post, so we can still do the surveys. We just have to make sure people, fill it out. So just want to put that out there, that I've done the virtual presentation, was okay, and we can figure it out. Thanks.
Was that an adult group that you did it with?
Yeah, it was. It was a community group in Wake Forest that I did that with. Yes.
So, BJ, I just recently got an email from Wayne County. Apparently, you're planning to do a similar sort of thing for Wayne, a virtual presentation.
I thought that was going to be just Jane, but what it's going to be is a town hall and discussion. And that's the reason we've invited is just to maybe take that town hall opportunity, and we could talk about it later, is to promote the fact that the grant is coming to Wayne County. But it will not be a presentation, it'll be a town hall discussion.
Okay.
Anybody else?
We've been a little bit busy. The business, we've been working with parents and teens, trying to talk about some things that they can do together while they're in this stay-at-home situation, and trying to help parents to about what they are doing, and just trying to assist them that way. We've done Zooms and a few meetings, like the Facebook Live and those kinds of things.
Okay.
This is April with Rad. We've done, like everybody else, tons of Zoom meetings and WebExes and everything else. And I don't like WebEx, by the way. But we've worked just doing a lot of that, still tracking, doing the best we can until everything opens back up and our individuals can safely come back out, because a lot of them are still on lockdown and will be for a while, unfortunately. But one thing we did do on the bright side is a happy moment, I guess you can say. Made a bunch of kits and for the individuals that are stuck at home, and mailed them out or dropped them off, so they would have a craft or an activity to do to lighten their mood and to make them feel like they had something to look forward to in the future. So we're working on it. We're going to keep working on it and praying for everybody, and that everything's going to get back to normal sooner than later.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, April, I think that's a good idea, trying to help them to find something to do. The NAACP youth group, they did some starter libraries for people that didn't have books at home. So they read some of those out.
Great.
And that was very well received from the community. So that was an excellent idea for that group.
Great. I'll move on. So now that I think all of us, even though I think we've had pretty decent turnout for these Zoom meetings, I do think we need to talk about how we're going to kind of reconnect to the project and the plan itself, and getting things back in our regular meeting time and fashion, and what we're needing. I know we have some people who haven't been with us from the very beginning, And so how many people feel like they would need a check-in / refresher / DMC 101 for some new faces? I know I've sent out some different handouts and things over the last couple of weeks, but how many people, or do you think, I guess maybe by a show of hands in the chat box, how many people think I need to do a refresher, a DMC 101, a separate kind of meeting that's just to kind of give people a chance to understand what the grant is about, and also about what we've done thus far.
Were there, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
I know
No.
there were 2 meetings that went over PowerPoint.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there were previews based on this also?
Oh, we've been meeting for a long time, for well over a year.
Okay, this is my 3rd meeting.
Yes, it is. So I would think
That
you were
answers
one of
that
those
one for
people.
you.
I would think it would be helpful for you. And there are a few other people who have been, who've been coming around lately, but haven't been around the whole time. And I think to give you some perspective and really the purpose of what we're doing, it might help. But I just wanted to see if there was interest in general in that.
Linnea, looking at the
Yes.
chat and just knowing all the new faces that we have, and speaking to some folks, I think it's a great idea to go ahead and just do a 101.
Okay. So what maybe Yolanda and I or a group of us can come up with a date or a couple of date options, and then we can do just a DMC 101 meeting and give everybody a chance to catch up, and we can review a lot of great papers that I have created over the last year or so. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yolanda, you'll help me with that? Yes. Okay. Thank you. All right. Yeah. Also, also about is there anything else that you all are interested in learning about besides we've actually had several trainings over the last year as well. Racial equity training, again, the DMC 101 training, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. No, we've done 2 racial equity trainings and 1 DMC training. So if there are any things that you all feel like you have missed, please let us know. Or I guess you probably don't know what you've missed. But as we go over that, maybe hopefully that'll give everybody a chance to catch up and also a reminder for those people who might have come in and come out over the time, it might be helpful.
Were they recorded?
No, those were all in person. We were actually coming to Kinston. I was actually getting to shake hands and
it's getting harder and harder to remember those days.
Yes. I got to kiss Tiffany's baby and everything. So it was all right. So speaking of that, is there anything else in regards to community engagement? I have some groups that I'd like to start seeing engaged in this process. I'd like to give you all a chance to say, oh yeah, Linnea, we need to ask such and such. We need to ask such and such. And because we think that they would have a great voice in this process or yeah, so anybody?
I know, I don't know that we've had anybody from the rec department, and they serve so many of our children and families that I think it could be really good. I also think, even though I'm not, and please, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm not a big politician person.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times to get things done, it might be helpful to have folks from both our city and our county, political perspectives on. I know Mr. Rouse is running for election, so maybe we'll have that one person. But I'm just saying, I think it's important, because some of this may down the line be tied to some money or programming and stuff. So we need to have the people on who can help with that. So those are just some ideas from me.
We do have a county commissioner who's been in on the Zooms, as well as a couple of our council members. May not be specifically here today, but they're here most of the time on our Zooms so far. So just apparently weren't able to make today's.
Yeah, even though we changed the meeting time for.
It's okay. Okay.
We'll send her a gentle reminder. Anyway, anybody else or?
Is there representation from the gate?
The gate. Hi, Miss Solomon. She's here.
No. And I think if we do another 101, introductory, good ideas in reference to Parks and Recreation. I've spoken to Corey Povar, our Parks and Rec director, about this several months back prior to COVID, and he was on board. But I think bringing in right now, if he just came to this meeting, he really wouldn't know where. So I think a good thing to do is to do another 101 and our restart meeting for the new folks. And I would definitely invite Donna from the Gate and Corey Povar from Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
I believe they would both participate and be good partners.
Great. Thank you. Are you keeping notes with this, Yolanda, for me? Is that a yes? No, maybe no. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any ideas of people who we feel like or we know need to be here and aren't here? BJ, if you're trying to talk, you're still muted.
I wasn't trying to talk. But
oh, okay.
What about reentry or anybody? I mean, I know that's not juveniles, but still it's part of the community, folks that are transitioning back into our community.
Okay. Anybody else? I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, and we have a fairly active retreat.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Is there any, I don't know if there's any civic group participation. And I'm thinking specifically about Rotary. You know, Rotary has Interact and Rotaract clubs. Those are specifically for youth. And they're always looking for volunteer opportunities. And so as things progress, if there are opportunities where you need people, where we would need people to, you know, volunteer to do whatever may come about, that's always an option. And, you know, they're always looking for that sort of thing. And like I said, they have Interact and Rotaract clubs, which are comprised of young people.
Okay.
And Kinston teams, for that matter, are they involved?
Yes, Chris is involved. Yes, he is.
Okay.
He is a strong advocate. But I do think we need some more young people. And so that was one of the goals of this year, was to start engaging young people in the process, along with parents and along with some more school officials, and that we have funding for them to participate in this process in an equitable manner. And so we need to start putting that process in place. That was one of our outcomes for this year. And actually, I was really fortunate. On Monday, I got to sit in on a youth safety summit about schools. And it was led and managed by young people in the high schools, which was pretty profound and exciting. And I was hoping that maybe we could work towards doing something like that. And it was all virtual, which was pretty exciting. So I'd like to, again, put that back on our list of groups of people that we need to engage young people in the process, because this is for them and about them. And it'd be great to hear their voice. The other group of people who I feel like are here, but not here, and I shared this with Keith, And I think Colleen, this is actually Colleen's original thought. I don't know if it was the same out of her mouth. But we need more white people that are not business or not an agency oriented white people. We need regular white folks.
So again, I
and we
say
also
Rotary Club.
in our schools.
I'd like to say for the record that I'm a regular white person.
You're not one of the white people I can count on at this moment. I need other white folks. Regular white folks. So maybe
as long as you didn't use like the term normal white folk, because I don't know that I fall into that, but yeah, I think it would be helpful. And the school system, I'd love to get them here consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, we had until school broke, but just, you know.
You're right. And they show, I think Mr. Mumford is from the schools, I believe.
We had some pretty consistent cooperation or participation from the school system, from the behavioral folks there while we were meeting in the first Zoom at least. So
yeah,
they're continuing to participate.
And I see the chat just lit up. The superintendent was at the last meeting, and Miss Solomon says she also serves as a district representative. So we're happy to have you here for both positions. But yes, I do think we're going back to the white people. We need some white people. I'm not going to get us off topic. We need some more cool white people that are down for the cause. Yes.
Katie Webb is interested. She's a young white female fierce attorney.
Okay.
That I think could bring like a really, really good perspective. So I private message Chief to see if that would be okay. So I know she would be willing.
Okay, that'd be great. And then we also need some more powerful Black people. And when I say powerful Black people, I mean people, because what we don't want is a power imbalance on the committee. We want to make sure that we are able to have fair voices at the table, and that those voices, and I believe that we have some powerful voices that speak their mind, but I want to make sure that we don't skew things out of order in any way. We just want to make sure that there are plenty of voices at the table that are all sharing their perspective and thoughts, not only about Kinston and policing, but also about how youth engage with law enforcement. Please share your
Linnea,
thoughts. Yes. Go ahead.
That brings a question to me, Linnea.
Yes.
Do we just send them the invitation? Do we send them the data? Because, you know, like I know that like at one time the data had addresses in it and then there was new data. So I wasn't sure, how do we get them to engage?
Okay. So again, I think maybe starting with a refresher, DMC 101, and then start to join the committee after that point. I think that would probably be a good time, but I'm okay with everybody sharing the second PowerPoint I shared with you, which doesn't have any addresses on it or any private information. The assessment, next time we meet, I will go over the assessment, but I want to go over with KPD first to give them a chance. And yeah, so my thinking is, and then that assessment then can be shared with the world. Okay.
So Linnea, the second PowerPoint that you're referring to, which one is that?
That's the one I sent out today.
Okay.
And the first one, I can actually do I can just do one cleanup version of it'll be long, but I can clean it up. And then that can go out for distribution to everybody if you all like just one big master one. Yes, no, maybe so. Nod your heads. Okay, yes, okay.
I'd be interested in getting that because I would need something that I can share with folks to try to invite them and get some interest to get some of those white folk you're talking about.
They are white. No. So Sorry, it's a joke. If you can't laugh, you can't cry. All right, so so just to kind of give you all, those of us who've been around for a minute, we have actually looked at this grant fact sheet that I created, and it's just a very bird's eye view of what the grant entails. And it has some of that data, a very high level data that you can share with people that I think is probably the most appropriate data to share until they could actually kind of go through what all that data means and the PowerPoint that I did. So really quickly, you know, the goals of the grant are to engage 200 youth and 100 parents. And so we need to, that's goal number one. We need to get going on that one. I know BJ, thank goodness, thank God, she was able to start this year before COVID hit really bad. So I think we came pretty close. BJ, will you let us know on the number that we needed to get this year? BJ, are you there? Okay, I'll ask her later.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't remember the number, but I think we came close. You're right, it's close.
I thought you did. So, but we still need to reach out to the parents, which again was supposed to be one of the activities we were really going to work with the NAACP and Kinston teens on specifically, and the schools. Yes? No? Just to remind people of what it was. This isn't the first time you've seen it. It's been a while. It's the first. Yes, no? Some of us, no, don't remember? No, I know you don't, April, but but some of us should remember this. Some of us have seen this before. Yeah, okay. And then we were supposed to complete a culturally competent plan, which is what we're actually finishing up on now that we've addressed the disparities so that we know what we need to address. And then the third goal was to develop a parent and youth advocacy training so that we could have parents more involved in the process, so especially on the school side, and making sure that we're not just kind of leaving young people to interact with law enforcement without support systems in particular. And then 4 was train multidisciplinary DMC reduction teams that were school-based, community-based teams. So we were looking for a safer campus, a safer school environment, as opposed to, you know, in a law enforcement environment. We want the schools to be safer. And then we were finally supposed to create a DMC data management team. Yes, no, remember this? Yeah. So we have been doing a lot of data work thus far, so people kind of have an idea of where we're going to be going with the data work. And my hope is that I will get several people who say, yes, Linnea, I want to work on data with you. And we will make that a regular thing that we want to start reporting on. When I got to see Keith last week, yay. Colleen, how many target data numbers? What does that mean, Yolanda? Yay, thank you. So what we needed to do is, how many volunteers do we need for the team? Is that what you're saying? At least 5, I think would be good.
I have one question, even though I don't know about this.
Okay.
The very first part says provide 200 youth and 100 parents. Okay. Just so I understand this, is that a target of 200 youth, 100 parents, Black, or a combination of?
You know, I don't think we decided that, but I would think that the majority of them need to be Black because that's the target group that we're trying to address. But I would say this, that white parents can be advocates for kids, period. It doesn't matter. We need parents to help advocate for kids. And that's what we need. So I think that we need more parents that can advocate for their children, and it would be great if we could have other parents that felt comfortable advocating for other children. But I think we'd have to work that out a little bit.
Yeah, I think it.
Miss Solomon is chiming in. Go ahead.
I definitely don't think that it needs to be any exclusion. I think we do need to encourage, of course, all respective, adolescents and youth in our respective communities to attend, because out of it all, the awareness is key. Being able to sit in on BJ's lessons with you and 5-0, it's education for everyone, and it just gives a real good understanding of what certain, like, for example, it gives kind of like an insight on what children and young males of color may experience. And so I think just bridging that gap and opening it for everyone to be able to move into a place of understanding. And a lot of the points that were in the video anyway, like, it's any child, you know what I'm saying? Because the reality is, even when we look in schools, it's not just children of color, unfortunately, who have, quote, compliance issues. It's all children. And I just think it would be good if we, open it for everyone, and that we invest in getting as many parents and as many children to participate in our respective immediate communities.
And our goal is that even though we are focusing on KPD, but the school system in its entirety was going to participate. It wasn't just going to be the 2 schools that are KPD. KPD has SROs in. So this is great. This would be great. So the idea of us having school safety teams is what I was originally calling them. And especially in the high school and the middle schools would be the ideal goal. But thank you for sharing, everybody. So I emailed this out so you can get a chance just to read this and get familiar with it. And we'll go over it in more detail in our DMC 101 kind of catch-up meeting. Any questions about this? So we need to get all of these goals on a calendar to get moving on. So the Governor's Crime Commission has extended this year for us. So this year will go, it won't end in October like it typically would. It'll end in January. So we will have an extra 4 months to get these goals accomplished. So again, so we really need to start working on the parent youth, and we need to start engaging more young people quickly. So we probably need to work on actually creating some subcommittees that are going to address some of the specific outcomes that are kind of fit more in their wheelhouse. And then we can report back to the main group how things are going. How do you feel about that?
I think January will be here before we know it. So
I know, that's what I said now.
We need to set some deadlines. We might have to work through them, understandably, but at least give us something to work toward.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe a youth subcommittee and maybe or a parent and youth subcommittee, and then a data subcommittee. And I think those 2 would be good for right now, those 2. So if anybody I know that Miss Lily has shared on several occasions she wanted to do some training stuff. especially with parents. That would be a great, I'm nominating you, Miss Lily, for that subcommittee if you'd like to join it. I think that'd be the place for you in particular. I don't know if Tiffany, if you're interested in it as well, that would be great. Miss Solomon, I would love for you to be on there if you have the time. And I don't know if Captain Revis would be interested in that one. That would be good as well, since he is, or Keith, if I don't want to drag Keith into everything I do all day long, but
Thank you.
but maybe Captain Revis wants to play with me on this one. You know, whoever's managing the SROs would be great. And this might be a great opportunity for us to ask the sheriff, if whoever's managing the SROs there, if they would like to join us in this school safety kind of initiative.
Good idea.
Okay.
I think we can, you know, as there's a bunch of folks here today, but a bunch of folks that aren't, I think we can break these groups up and cast them out via email and get some participation instead of.
Yes, it would be great. Okay. So that was some of that little housekeeping stuff I felt like we needed to get done. Last thing on the agenda, I feel like that for housekeeping purposes is, how about our communication? Are we communicating? And I say that as Linnea / Chief Dilday / Yolanda. Hello?
I'm sorry, that was me.
Okay.
They had an alarm pulled here at the courthouse. Sorry.
Okay. So my question is, are we communicating the way everybody needs us to communicate to be effective? Are we getting the messages out to let you know when the meetings are happening? Are we getting enough people to the table? You know, how are we communicating? This is a check-in on our work. Are we doing a good enough job? Do we need it? What can we do to improve communication with the public? I do this every now and then. I just wanted to check in and make sure we are doing okay. And you don't have to answer right now if you don't want to, but feel free to just let us know if there's something else we can do to make it easier or better to communicate, to get messages out, to share things. Thoughts? Anyone? Okay. All right. We'll send an email to me or Yolanda if you have a. That's not a bad idea, Tiffany. So Tiff, can I share this message that you just sent me, Tiffany? Okay. So Tiffany suggested a social media Facebook group that she said she'd be willing to manage for this work. What do you think? I'm a personal hater of Facebook, but I'll do it if you want me to.
Is she saying that for the public to have access to what this group is doing? Is that it's going to be a public one?
Tiffany?
I just heard the word communication with the community. I wasn't sure if we're talking about a way to make the community aware of the work that we're doing, or, I mean, I just know that that's a quick way to access the community and a younger demographic of people that we may be trying to reach. So if it's an option, I mean, I'm willing to, you know, take it, because social media management isn't difficult, but I'm just asking the group if it's an option. I'm willing to do it.
I vote yes on it. That's a good way to get information out.
Yeah, I think young people definitely are open to it. I like that Judge James says thumbs up. And Sarah's like, I think that's a great place for sharing about trainings and meetings. So I'm willing to see if it works. I'm like I said, I'm not the biggest advocate of Facebook, but I will do it if you want me to. And so Tiffany, if you're willing to take a lead on it, I'd love for us to talk about it a little bit more. Maybe Chief Dilday has some parameters. I'm willing. I think we should also talk about that a little bit. Maybe we can do that offline. Yes?
Absolutely. So, I'm a fan of using that forum to pass information. We just have to be careful with some of the things we do on it. So.
Yeah. But I think that's a great idea. All right. So moving on, does anybody else have any thoughts before I move on officially? Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Sounds good. All right. So let's move on. April said that she would help you, Tiffany, by the way, if you need help. Okay. So we are done with that. Does anybody have, yeah. Do we have anything else that I need to talk about in us engaging or connecting back to the plan of work that we need to get done? Stuff like that.
Only thing I'll add is that, we're going to be reaching out to the email group requesting, hey, will you participate in this subgroup, this subcommittee with some deadlines and things. It won't be a huge time commitment, hopefully, but it will be something that we need to get taken care of because we talk about January. That will be here before you know it. So it's something that we have to really get on. So when we contact you, just please participate. We don't want all this work to be for naught. We want to get the most bang for our tax dollar funded work here and best product for the youth of our community. Thanks for everybody's participation.
Thank you. All right. So with that, we're going to move and finish up on our police reform, our data analysis, if that's okay. I just wanted to give everybody a chance to wrap up with that. And so what we were really doing the last time we met was we were starting to do some self-analysis. And self-analysis is the best. I completely think it is the way to go on data and what does the data tell you. And so the last thing that we looked at was we looked at this about the referrals, right? And so here's the next element that we were going to look at was the comparison of Black and white contacts. So again, this is over the 4 years, and this is, or 5 years, sorry. And this is just showing what the comparison is. So again, what we're looking at is less than 5 to 10, pretty much on average, we're seeing every year of contacts with white people, and around 50 to and upwards of 75 contacts a year for Black people. So I wanted to give you all a chance to just give me some feedback as to what this data tells you collectively in the group this time. Thoughts? Don't all speak at once.
Keith, I think we were at 80% were response to calls. Is that accurate, or were we ever dig into the SROs even more?
I'm sorry, say that
Sorry,
again.
my battery's low. That is correct. 80% so far from what I've been able to go through was dispatched. and the other 20% is going to be on view or an SRO encounter. So once I can dissect that, I'm thinking it's going to be probably cut that in half, to be honest with you.
So what I'm saying, Linnea, is from the information that Keith got from you last week, he went through it, and right off the top, 80% of those were an officer responding to a call for service, not a self-initiated type activity. And of the 20 that were a self-initiated activity, he's still pulling out which ones of those are school related. So we should have that by next meeting, their exact numbers. So it makes a difference to us as far as, I need to know, is it something that we're responding to 911 calls on, or are officers paying more attention to black kids, that kind of thing.
Anybody else? Any other thoughts about that? Okay. All right, so let's move on. So this is the next one about, and again, what I'm asking for you to do is to just tell me literally what this data is telling you. You don't have to add extra to it. You don't have to make it. It's not something that your expectation is to try to explain it and just say, this is why it is. It's just, we're just trying to say, what does the data literally tell us? What is it actually explaining to us about what has been happening? So here's the next one, contacts by race, and this is, so total, it's 93% Black and 6% or 7% white. And what does that mean to us and our work? Anyone?
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah. So the question is what is this, when we see this kind of data, what does it tell us about what's happening? The point is not to explain it or to go, oh, well, this is why it happened or this is why it happened, but really just what does the data tell us? What does it say? And yes, this is for the 2014 to 2018. By the way, Keith said that he would provide me 2019. And so hopefully I'll be able to add that to this so that we can see what progress or what exciting things have happened in 2019. So if you want me to go first.
That's what I was going to ask. Are we supposed to do it in the question box or?
No, just I'm giving people a chance to just kind of give feedback together collectively right now.
Just looking at what we see right here.
Mm-hmm.
Just off the top of my head, what I'm looking at is true indeed some disproportionality going on. There is some targeting. There may be different ways of reasons why these kids are referred or in, whatever, but it seems that graph, there's no, pretty way to put it other than, yeah, you're talking about 93% versus 6%. To me, just as a parent of Black boys, who works in the community with Black and brown youth, my word would be disturbing. If that's okay with the group. And unfair. So that's
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Really quiet up here.
Yes, I mean, it's not, I'll be
I don't
honest,
know.
it's
I
not the
don't
most
know.
pleasant to look at. But again, I would say that the important thing is that we are here looking at it and we're not ignoring it, because I think that's how things they get worse before they get better. What we're trying to do is build a new relationship, a new way of policing, and for your community, so that it looks like the way you want it to look, not the way Linnea says it should look, but the way you want it to look. So the point is for you to give feedback. I think most people would never look at it this way, and this is just the raw data. This is just raw counting. It's not me, squeezing it, making it look funny or anything. This is just literally what, when you count it up, that's just what it is. That's all.
This is just the data, basically.
Just the raw data.
What it's saying. Yeah, okay.
And this is a longitudinal. So this isn't just like 1 year. This is over several years of what has been going on in KPD. And this is just KPD, and this is just juvenile, or this is just young people under the age of 15, 15 and younger. So yeah. Thoughts? Anybody else?
I just want to say the data, however you say it, wherever you're from in the country, it does look bad. But once we delve into why the contacts were made, I think it's going to explain a whole lot more.
I'll say
what I mean by that. What I mean by that is our police officers with the Kinston Police Department getting out with young people with hopes of putting them in jail and incarceration, prison to pipeline. I think that whenever we delve into this, that's not going to be the case. The case is going to be that we're getting calls for X, Y, and Z, and that's where these contacts are taking place. That's all I wanted to say.
I'll say that's my hope.
Yes.
However, if it's not the case, that sometimes it's hard to look at data, but in order for us to look at where we need to go, we need to know where we've been. So that's what we're doing. So to hear Reverend Mumford say, disproportionately, and obviously it is disproportional, targeting. Those are things that are very concerning to me, and that's their perception. When you look at that, how else can you see? It appears that there's targeting of young Black folks. So I need to find out if that's the case or not. If I look at, and I brought it up before, and I don't want to keep beating on it. If I look at the demographics of the schools here in Kinston, they're predominantly Black students. Is that most of what we're interacting with? And if they're calls for service, does that mean, even if I am getting a 911 call, are we treating those juveniles appropriately when we do get the call? I can't help who calls us and why, but we can control how we handle that situation once we're on the scene.
Just one more comment. Can you say your name, Linnea, right?
Yeah, Linnea.
Okay, Linnea. Two comments. One, were you talking about the racial equity report card for 2019 that you said that you was trying to get? Was that?
We have looked at the racial equity.
You said something about 2019.
Oh no, what I was talking about was the juvenile contacts from Kinston Police Department. Okay. Basically all the arrests and interactions that happen. There's a report done, and what I did was, and that's where all this data came from, the interaction reports from Kinston Police Department with young people.
Okay, because that southerncoalition.org has that report, and it speaks to school-based children.
Yes, it does. It does.
School personnel, academic achievement, all of that. And then two, my second comment would be, we have to figure out or kind of understand who is calling and you know, you talk about referrals or calls being made on kids. Maybe that's a problem area. If it's from the schools, if it's from the public, other organizations. What comes to my mind real quick is the 911 calls that we see being made, and the severity of a 911 call. Should these kids, should the police be called, right, with these kids in certain situations? That adds to the data that we see, right? Is it something that could be taken care of without, and I know that's what we're talking about, police involvement and all of that good stuff. So my thing is the organization, institution, person or persons referring or calling. Are we looking at that piece? Who are they? Demographics, what do they want or expect the outcome to be? Are we looking at that piece? That's all.
No, this is really good. So that's part of the challenge with the data that I was with the youth contact sheet. Yes, sir.
We're not going to be able to measure that.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could, but we're not going to be able to. We don't have that specific information on any report.
However, I think that going forward, which is why we need part of this data planning that we need to do, and so that we can do our best to maybe figure out based on the location or based on you know, some of the known locations that call and contact, that we'll be able to say, hey, you know, we've had X number of contacts from the school system. So we know that these are school system generated contacts, and then we can assess those separate. And the same thing maybe for businesses. And then the ones that are private, we can look at them separately. And that might give us a little bit more information about that, hopefully.
I wanted to say that when you look at the data, that's a visual that speaks very loudly.
Yes, it does.
And what people see is whenever there's something measured, then it can get attention. So when you look at that, you've got all these questions up under it, and that's what we would be addressing as this group of people, to where that disproportionate contact was being made. So I think the visual is wonderful. That data speaks loudly to us. And when Pastor Mumford says it's disheartening, is all the description that he gave it, it's that and more, but it has to be done. So
thank you.
We can appreciate that data.
Thank you.
Looking at that is quite staggering. Just looking at that is staggering. But it makes me think back to, I think it was the last meeting we had. There was other numbers that you gave me that I also thought was staggering, because I live in the county. So I had no clue about those numbers. I work in the city, but live in the county. And when I found out what percentage was that lives in the city, you know, race per race percentages, I was quite astounded by that too, because I would have never figured that. Never in my world would I have ever guessed those numbers. I don't know why, but I would have never guessed those numbers. So looking at this is even more staggering than that. But still, I was really shocked by the percentages of what actually lives in the city.
Oh, this one? Yes.
Okay. I had no clue.
Okay.
I mean, just driving down the street, you can't tell.
So I don't know why my perception. And so let me say this: perception is important, and I think that's a big piece of what we're going to look at, or we are looking at, is because the challenge is that as a Black person, I always see white people. I don't care where I'm going. I always see white people, because white people, even though I spend a lot of time with white people, I can see white people as threats.
As what?
As threats.
Right.
To my safety. I know it's very different. For a white person, you would never think that.
Yeah.
But for Black people, we see white people, I see white people as threats. They can be. They can call the police on me. They can do a whole lot of things to me. It might not be, and it's not the same. And I think that it's a challenge to the perception of how people see people. And so part of that is that I've been in Kinston. I don't know how many. I've been visiting Kinston for well over a year and a half now, and I swear every time I go downtown, I mainly see white people. But if you ask white people, they say no, Kinston is mainly Black. But that's what I see, and I think I'm just pointing out that the perception, what you see is what you see. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's reality. And it's not necessarily everybody's reality. So, I mean, that's just the truth. I don't know any other way to say it. But the point being is that you have a predominantly white police force. You have a predominantly male police force. And they see what they see. And people who are calling.
What does that mean right there? What you just said?
They see what they see.
Who's they? Like who are they?
What I'm saying is that Black people are often perceived as a threat.
So from what I'm getting that you just said was,
okay,
we have a white predominantly.
You do have a white. We know that that's a fact.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But it sounds like you're saying that because we have white males working, and we're judging Black people when we see them. Is that what you just said?
I didn't say judge.
Well, that's okay. Change the word judge and
I said perceive people. People perceive different people as threats. That's what I said.
Okay. I'm gonna disagree with that comment.
Okay.
That's fine.
That's fine. It is fine. I mean, the point is what we're trying to do is recognize that this data shows clearly that there is a group of people, this is KPD, right?
Mm-hmm.
And KPD is having interactions with Black people 93% of the time.
Juveniles, yes, you're correct.
Yeah, I haven't seen your adult data, so I can't say that that's what that is, but this is what it is, right? So if we have out of 70 officers, I believe it's about 60%, maybe a little less than that, are white officers, correct?
It's less than that.
Okay, less than 60?
Oh, yes. No, it's a higher percentage of white.
Yeah.
Revis, can you talk?
Yes, sir. About 80% of the officers in Kinston are white.
And they are engaging with, and the outcome of who they're engaging with is 93% of them are Black.
Fair.
Yeah.
I mean that's fair. Yeah. So the
and I don't know why, and that's and to be honest with you, I don't know if we're ever going to know exactly why all of these interactions happen, but we know that they're happening.
I can give you the fact that 80% are dispatched calls.
Okay, and and you found that in the
Yes.
police reports.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And you didn't have that information because you didn't have the actual report. So that was unfair for you, really. I mean, that's you didn't have the incident report, so you wouldn't have known that. So
I think what's important here is, let's go back to what something Linnea said a minute ago, which is perceptions and realities, and a person's perception is their own specific realities, and we're just talking about what the raw data says, and not getting into, or not at the point of the whys at the moment.
This is not about why.
So it's not about why. It's just about the raw numbers.
And to be honest with you, I don't truly think that we'll ever know why all of these interactions happen. And you can look at each police report. Hopefully you would see some of it, but you won't really know what was the reason why someone called. You just won't know necessarily. And I don't think that that's a reasonable request of law enforcement to always know why. But we do know that there is a connection between law enforcement and this connection with this Black interaction at 93%. Yes, no?
Yes. Miss Linnea, may I?
Yes. Yes, please, feel free.
So a while ago, there was a training at the Kinston Community Center, right? Where the ladies came and presented some data, and they were talking about how often Black kids go into the system, even though the data shows that their parents, they may get a call from a teacher or something about a Black student, and they're more likely to go into the system because of the call, and white students are less likely to go in that same system because the teacher will call social services versus with a Black student versus interacting with the parent. So I guess my point is we can't be so focused on, okay, there are more Black people that they are dealing with, quote unquote, and that's I mean, I'm not saying that it's fair, but if we say the obvious, which, and I'm trying to say this the right way, so excuse me, if we speak to the obvious, which is the population, and that'll kind of take away from the authenticity of the work. If we try to say, well, let's look at the fact that the population is, more Black people, et cetera, it'll take away from the work that we're doing when the facts simply say that there's a problem. If it's 93% versus, like there's an obvious issue, and it isn't about pointing fingers at the department per se, but there's an obvious issue and an obvious problem. And I was trying to bring that around all together because sometimes Black and brown people, kids, get the police called on them for things that white children don't, and those white children are doing the same things. Right. So while we can't measure, obviously we say we can't measure, like the reasoning behind the call or the why for the contact, it can't be, well, these are dispatched calls, et cetera. Like we have to give our children a benefit of the doubt. It's not that they are more likely to misbehave than white children. White children and Black children, they're still children. They have the same developmental things going on. They'll both make mistakes. They'll both, do silly things. So I hope I made my point, but we can't say, well, we deal with more Black children, so that's why, Black children are not more likely to misbehave than their counterparts. But somewhere, as Mr. Mumford was saying about that initial call, somewhere somebody is not giving these children equitable opportunities and directing them. Whereas a Black child, you immediately call, Black or brown child, you may immediately call the police, and a white child, they may call his mom, or may try to figure out what's going on. So we're seeing disproportionality, which is obvious. I hate the word targeting, but that is the perception that I agree with.
And the challenge for all of us as we go forward is to make to look at this and go, what is the data telling us? The data is, what we know is that there are 60% Black people in Kinston. However, we're seeing 93% of interactions. And so this is the data that we want to try to align and look at this and go, what is this about this 30%? Is this 30% unnecessary? Is this 30% that we can reduce? Is this 30% that we can eliminate? What is this about this extra 30% on the top of what 60% we should be seeing,
You
which
know,
is what we should be expecting. It's the idea is not to say that there won't be any interaction with law enforcement with Black people or Black children. It's that we needed to look, it needs to be proportionate, and it needs to be, I would say, prioritized in a way that shows that, you know, that the morals and the philosophy of your community, so that it's reflected. Yeah.
so if I may, we talked about a lot of things that we can't measure and a lot of things that we can't do. I'd like to focus on the things that we can do. The things that we can do are to look at how we have been policing, how we are policing, and how we need to police, and make adjustments if necessary, moving forward. So, and the only way to do that is to look at this data and to go from there, and not to concentrate on the things that we can't control.
So, Chief, I think that's an excellent point that you make. We cannot, the 80% of the calls with juveniles that were dispatched to, the police department are going to obviously go to those calls. So what, as an officer, I'm thinking about is ensuring that we're treating everybody fairly and equally, which is what was brought, what I was concerned about when we were talking about that earlier, because if the community's calling, obviously the police department's going to follow up with that phone call, and there will be interaction. We just got to ensure that we're doing the things that the community expects us to do fairly and equally.
Okay, thank you. So the next slide, just really quickly, and then we're gonna wrap up, is about age, race, and interactions. And so what this chart is, so the last one on the table is the the total amount of interactions. And this is for, the first one is youth ages 14 to 16, preteen 11 to 13, 8 to 10, and young child 4 to 7. So this is an opportunity to share your thoughts about this and what this means.
I've still got one question that I kind of need some clarification on.
Yes, ma'am.
Is cultural training the very same as the training, Chief Field Day, that the people are already getting, officers? And I think the reason I'm asking that is just the people here in Kinston that we're working with. I think there are some cultural differences that might help us along the way that probably everybody don't know about, because they just not, you know, your officers have not grown up with these kids, you know, they don't live with them and those kinds of things. Is that something a little bit different that we might need other than the training that we're already giving them? Because I know you did tell me that they are getting training on how to stop, you know, whenever they stop people in the contact that they're using.
Yes, ma'am. So that training is something that we've discussed with this group along the way. Our officers have been exposed and annually are exposed to something the state refers to juvenile minority sensitivity training. The topic changes a little bit every year. I believe this year, and Captain Brevis may correct me, it was dealing with long-term adversity. I believe was how it was titled, but it was the long-term effects of childhood adversity and how that affects children as they develop, and policing interactions concerning those issues. In addition
adverse
to those,
childhood, I think it's adverse childhood.
correct. In addition to that, while Linnea, I don't believe is a fan of this training, we like to get all of our officers into fair and impartial policing. It gives a background on policing. It's an eye opener, especially from my perspective. So Linnea has her thoughts and opinions on that, but I don't think it can hurt. There may be some better things out there, but it's something that we're continuously developing with BJ and Linnea. And as far as looking what's available, and if it's not available, to develop what is best for us and our officers.
So I had initially, when I wrote the grant, I had included fair and impartial policing. The state denied us that. That was specifically the one item they said we could not do.
Yeah, but we can do it. We can't do it in the grant, but we can do it,
Yes.
and we have done it. We know we are a young department. We hire a lot of new people, so all of my new guys, our officers, haven't gone through it. But I believe we've got some lined up, Captain Revis, right now. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay.
So we've got some fair and impartial classes scheduled for all the officers who have not had it, and a refresher for those who already have.
Okay.
So the short answer, Miss Lily, is yes, we continuously provide training for that. But, you know, a classroom once or twice a year isn't the same as, you know, living it. That's why our officers are at the elementary schools. Obviously, with COVID and summertime, they're not there. But as soon as school kicks up, all of our elementary schools, every day there'll be officers there. Well, there's a security element. Obviously, it's more of a relationship building both ways. It's for the kids to realize that the officers are people, and it's for the officers to realize that should not be an us and them mentality. This is our community. These are our kids, regardless if they look like me or not.
Right.
Okay. Just for the sake of time, does anybody have any thoughts about this one? Just to move on really quickly.
I'd like to say something because it looks real bad when you look and see a age 4 to 7 and you got a police report. Rest assured, that's not something where a police officer has grabbed a 7-year-old and seen him done something wrong. That's a report where something was mandatory reporting on, you know, age 8 to 10 and 4 to 7. Those are mandatory report type crimes.
Actually, I went back and looked at that one in particular, and I think when we break them down, it wasn't sexual or anything like that. It was a theft.
Yeah, what, a victim crime?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a victim crime that you would report. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was a in-school crime. I believe it was a tablet. I believe is what I saw.
Yeah, this readout printout looks just like the numbers in terms of the youth I serve in the programs that I coordinate and supervise. It's disheartening. I mean, ages 14 to 16. Yep. I've even had them as young as elementary come see me. So and you're talking youth, young child. So yeah, the data is there. Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping for out of this experience, because this has been my first time getting on call, and I've spoken to Chief Dale Day plenty of times, that we have some meaningful and truthful conversation.
Yes.
And that we look at the data for what it is and not necessarily try to underpin the data, but move forward in a way where we can really get some resolve out of this, y'all. I mean,
that's why we're here, and we appreciate your participation.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to point this out, and in part, I think it's important to see that. So this data is going to be for students that are within the Kinston city limits. This is going to be youth that are, again, under the age of 15. And this is youth that you are seeing, that you're seeing a presence of police interactions at a young age, and you're seeing it growing exponentially. And I think that it's important to know, or for us to all note, that this isn't just in school, this is out of school. So this is across the board interactions. Okay, thoughts? All right, moving on. So this is Miss Lily. The last time we talked, we were talking, or you asked specifically about what were the charges or what were the concerns, what were some of the, not charges, but what were some of the what's counts that we were addressing. And so here they are again, just really quickly. So I'm gonna let you look at all these kind of collectively together. So this is all larceny, all other sex offenses, which again is under 2, all other simple assault, all traffic. So you don't have a lot of traffic. And what you can see is there are some that are very even, that where you're seeing that it's just in general, what we're seeing is a challenge of addressing things collectively. And then as we look at charge group 2, again, we're seeing burglary, enforceable entry. Again, we're seeing the same thing. And then we're seeing the next one, fighting and affray, and where we're seeing an escape from custody, we're seeing that only Black people are being charged with these. And these are things that I think we can really address specifically. There are specific charges that I think we need to look at and address. Disorderly conduct, city ordinance violation, drug violations is another one I think that we need to spend some time and evaluate. And again, here's drug evaluations, and this again is only Black people are being charged with that. And then finally, simple non-physical threat, simple physical assault, and trespassing. Again, trespassing is probably just like shoplifting, is charts that I think look like what you would expect. They're balanced and they have representation from all these different groups. And that means that probably the public is calling fairly on these maybe couple of charge types, but not the others. So thoughts?
I'm sorry, Lynette, can you repeat what you said about the drug charges? You said that.
So 100% of the drug violations charges that we're seeing are Black.
100%?
And they're all marijuana.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at this and I'm floored because obviously Black kids aren't the only ones who are smoking pot.
Mm-hmm.
But the data says they're the only ones being arrested or charged for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if, from a policing perspective, and I don't even know if this is possible, but decision trees, I mean,
yes,
something that would take colorism out of the picture.
Yes.
Something that would take that completely out of the picture so that it doesn't factor, it can't even possibly remotely factor, it can't implicitly or explicitly factor into the decision to charge and arrest.
Right.
Maybe you follow a decision tree,
Mm-hmm.
because this just makes no sense.
Yeah, and I think the same we could say the same for fighting. Would be escape from custody. I think that there are several that are in that same category that I think should cause us concern and want to look at these in particular, which is why I pulled them out this way.
So is there any, I don't know, any research or data around that sort of thing? And it may be totally impractical, but Chief and Lene, I suppose you know better than anyone, is there any sort of research around that issue of using decision trees to make those sorts of decisions rather than, you know, what's happening right now? Because the data shows us that's a problem.
Yes, yes. And I have shared that with KPD as a goal I think we should be looking to implement going forward. Because what we're seeing is, in general, we see an inconsistency in treatment, but that's a whole different slide. But what we're seeing is that depending on almost what officer you get, is kind of how you get treated. Some of them typically are a little bit more lenient with things, and some aren't. And so what we want to see is a more consistent pattern, and what, again, the decisions that the community thinks reflect their values, which is why I said that in the beginning about, do we want to treat trespassing the same way no matter what? Do we want to treat simple physical assault if it's at a school the same way? Do you want to have it? It varied depending on who responded, because that's really the difference, the response of the officer.
I think it's important to note, Judge, that these aren't petitions. They're just contacts. So all of these numbers are just contacts. It doesn't mean there's any court involvement. It's just a contact sheet. And we have changed policy. It says on initial contact, unless it's a mandatory petition, that there's a first contact would be a handle within department and released, regardless of what it is, as long as it's not a mandatory petition. So we have made some policy changes on that, and all of these are not petitions filed. They're just a contact with a juvenile, where an arrest sheet, so to speak, was generated. It's called a juvenile contact form.
And the challenge again is that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you for clearing that and sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
And part of the challenges is, again, this is 4 years, and what we'll be able to see is hopefully when we look at 2019 is hopefully seeing a little bit more consistency, since we've been meeting since technically 2018, in some of these charges and how they were how the referrals were handled. But as we move forward and we look at how the referrals are done, again, we want to see not only that people are being referred to handled within the department and release, but we also want to see people maybe sent to drug court, or sent to teen court, or sent to some other community-based service that could address these beyond just being recommended for a juvenile petition. Because as we know, this data has already shown us that the majority of the referrals and for KPD were juvenile petitions, or juvenile authority petitions.
Are you saying that you're saying, I believe I'm hearing you say the majority of the petitions?
And the majority of the contacts, the referral was the juvenile authority petition.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Um,
That doesn't necessarily mean that it went all the way through, correct?
Correct.
But the majority of these contacts as that are here, the majority of them were referred to juvenile authorities.
Something big for us is for handled within the department and release. We'd like to see more and more of that.
Mm-hmm.
However, we need more of something to provide the parent or guardian for.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be a constructive situation and not something negative. So
right.
The referral to East Point, which participating today, the referral to DSS,
mm-hmm.
teen courts, those types of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, and Ms. Colleen, that's maybe one of the subcommittees we need developing that. Just thought. I'd be happy to work with somebody on that.
That's, to us is we'd like for this to be we had contact with this juvenile, and he doesn't appear in the police department's internal records anymore thereafter as a juvenile or as an adult. That's the ultimate goal, is to have that. But we don't feel like we're providing the parent or guardian or providing the service to that juvenile to get them help if it's requested or necessary or advised. For us to just make a contact, drop off at a house and say, don't do it again, I don't think we're providing the adequate service or the service that our community expects for that juvenile.
So any other thoughts about this before we move on? Okay. So some of the analysis that I've done and we have talked about and over the last 2 or 3 months, again, is us having a conversation or figuring out the difference between officer initiated and 911 calls, and some general concerns or questions about how the 911 system operates and works here in Kinston, and how this data can be collected and shared. Also, we've had some data concerns about the contact sheet, what is on there and what we want to update to reflect the reporting needs that we see that we need, and answer some of the questions that we have been asking. We have also talked about creating a little bit more of some simple language, and again, like charge versus count and things like that. We also want to talk about collecting data about location versus school and business and private residences and things like that, so that we can track that a little easier and clearer. We want to share data with the schools. We want to make some connection between disciplinary versus law enforcement kind of action. We want to make some connections and see where the school to prison pipeline is, how we're seeing the connection happening. We want to also have a little bit more clarification about handled within the department. I think we have at different times called it like our misdemeanor diversion program and some other things like that. And so clarifying what does handled within the department mean? What are the long-term outcomes for that? And I think we've actually kind of had more discussion about that today. Arrest versus contacts. Some of these contacts don't actually say if the young person was arrested or if they were brought downtown. We don't know that according to these contact sheets. So that's some other things that I think will be helpful. And one of the things that Ms. Lilly said probably 9 months ago about documenting all the contacts, so that we can have a clarification of that. Yeah. And then what the other thing I think is missing is some qualitative data about the parents and the guardians, like what happened in that interaction, and some maybe possible civil rights related stuff, like how often were the young people like shared their rights and things like that, just making sure that that's clarified and that's documented, and potentially questioning without parents present, especially in school. And then also use of force data. We don't know if they were handcuffed or all that other stuff. And then one of the last thing is about supervisor approval. And so that has to do with the policy and the procedures that KPD uses as to how these referrals are made, and then consistency in reporting. Does anybody else have any other data concerns that I haven't kind of listed on here? Anyone? Okay. So really quickly, some of my recommendations is regard to data assessment. Overall, I think we need to develop a mission and vision to reduce Black youth engagement. We also need to revise the data collection and data collection policy and track all youth interactions. We want to review and update the juvenile contact policies to reflect the current situation. We want to increase access to other referrals besides the juvenile petition, which would be like mental health, social services, teen court, etc. We want to provide officers with positive youth development training and revise Lenoir County Public School Agreement to intervene potentially with only serious crime. We also want to develop specific strategies to identify and prevent contributors to charges for only Black youth. So that meaning what is it that's feeding that, and what can we do to address that? And then provide trauma-informed policing for officers, because I think that that would really help with how they interview and how the communication goes, because we want to have positive interactions and positive relationships going forward. And start trying to have moving towards a peacekeeper conflict management training style for officers, which is really helpful with a lot of communities trying to address racial equity and disproportionality. Thoughts? I feel like I just said a lot. I don't know if people understood what I said though. Okay, I think people are gone. Anybody there?
I'm here, Linnea.
Okay. I feel like I said a lot. Nobody said, what is that? Okay.
You said
you're breaking up. You are breaking up. Is that me? Hello?
Well, and I guess I go very beginning, and it's like, and it's been this long. I'm trying not to get frustrated, and that there's just so much to do.
Okay, I missed most of what you just said.
I just said that I was, after listening to that litany of stuff that needs to get done, and then, bringing back to the video you showed when we first started, and how, how hopeful it was that, we would be making progress, and, and though we have, there's so much yet to do. So I'm trying to balance not getting frustrated, or, I'm one of these who likes to get everything done like yesterday. And so, but I mean, I think it's a very, there are very good goals for us to set to work on.
Yes, and my expectation is not that everything will get done in the next year or two. But I think that some things are probably already underway. And KPD has been pretty responsive to some of the concerns that I and BJ both shared in our management meeting with this list. And I think that a lot of these things just require some additional boxes on the form, which will be helpful. I think a lot of these things just probably just have never been asked before, but now they're being asked, and so they'll be able to respond to it. I don't think, and some of these things are just kind of, in a way, like modernizing law enforcement that a lot of people are having to do that they've never been asked to do before. But I think it's a great thing for communities to have data accessible to them. So I think this is going to be a great thing. And I think some of this training, it could be an opportunity maybe for community partners to help lead a little bit more in helping law enforcement make great decisions and being better participating members, or more positive members participating in the community. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Okay. Yes. Thoughts? Anybody else?
Linnea, I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, like working, even myself, working for the sheriff's office for years, like as that person that received training, because I see up here, provide officers with positive youth development training, provide trauma-informed policing training, provide peace. And I know, how do you keep officers engaged and excited, quote unquote, about training? Because if the mindset of the officer that is receiving that training doesn't necessarily believe that there's an issue systemically, you know, how can you encourage and promote the application of that training? Because I can take a class, and if I don't necessarily believe, you know, that there's an issue, you know, I may take the class because I had to, per se, but how do you promote the application of what officers are being trained on, and that these trainings doesn't come redundant and just someone taking the training to keep their job?
I think anybody who participates in these types of in-service training, whether it's law enforcement or whatever your line of work is, it's very easy to become redundant.
Right.
I think it has to do with the operational philosophy of the department. A lot of it is a hiring and, more importantly, a retention issue. You know, we have to hire the right folks, and we have to retain the right folks, and more importantly, we have to let go of the wrong folks. And that's something that we strive for. We've taken great strides in hiring here in the city. I think there were some talks of you know, the demographics of our officers. I think Linnea will tell you, as far as use of force data and how people are treated, it really doesn't matter if the officer's black, white, or purple. Statistics generally show that we're all blue, if I could use that term. However, we strive for our department to match our community as much as possible. And, you know, if we get to that point, if anybody wants to see it, we can show you that our recruiting data and our hiring data, we're hiring a lot of folks from our community, from within our community. Some make it to the point of working on the street and some don't, but it's not a lack of effort on our part. So a lot of it has to do with just making sure that it's not just the chief and the majors in these meetings, that it's an operational philosophy that we pass all down the line. Because when you call 911, I'm not coming. You know, it's a young patrol officer, and we've got to ensure that they're on board with this. And is it a difficult task? Absolutely, but it's one that we're committed to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so some of the strategies, and I think we've kind of just quickly gone over them in the past, and we'll keep going over them. Is, again, I think the goal that we're looking for is how can we reduce contact, and then all the others kind of flow underneath that, and how can we eliminate youth behavior related counts, such as ROD or obstruction or calls for service. And we want to start talking about how we can provide training to address the misuse of SROs for teachers and principals, because what we're looking for is that SROs are really used for a specific task, and not just you know, used for behavioral disciplinary stuff that should be in school. And we want to eliminate biased youth labeling. You know, a few years ago, there was a label like super predator or drugs or gangs. And the more that we label young people, the more they kind of live up to that kind of labeling, and the more they kind of get pigeonholed. So we want to start reducing and eliminating that. We want to plan for logical and real events. One of the things when I was working for the school system is when we were planning for school safety, we would plan like for some wild and crazy things. It would be like, you know, that there was a Mack truck that fell in the backyard of an elementary school and it spilled gas everywhere. And, you know, these huge these huge scenarios. And sometimes the scenarios are absolutely appropriate, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes they can kind of breed fear and make people really scared and nervous. The other thing I think we should be looking to do again is engage businesses and frequent complainants. So if the schools or Walmart or other places where we're seeing a high number of calls or connections, we need to bring those people to the table and go, hey, how can we reduce these? What's going on? And then we want to, again, track officer initiated and emergency calls. And we want to provide training for officers on how to access community-based referrals, so that we can see some of those outcomes that we all want and desire. And community and department review of officer and department level engagement. You want to see how people are interacting, not at the year point, because at the year point, it's too late. It's done. You want to see things on a regular, more consistent basis. And another strategy would be for supervisors to reject and approve all juvenile petitions as they go forward. So that's pretty much it. Oh, and also coordinate more with the juvenile court counselors, which is Jerry Burns, who I don't think he's here today, and the decision tree, which some people have already mentioned the decision tree. We need to talk about the decision tree. So that's pretty much it for me today. I feel like we had a lot, but this was a lot in general. It was a lot of information. So we will, yeah, this was a lot. It's been a lot for the last 3 meetings, but it's a lot of data and it's a lot of work. All this data represents a person or persons, and it represents an officer and it represents a young person. And so we want to make sure that that we give it the time and attention that it deserves. Chief, did you have something else you want to say?
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. So anybody else, any thoughts? We have our next meeting. I believe it's August. That should be August 26th. And we'll go back to, I assume that would be good on monthly meetings. Should we stay with the 1 o'clock time?
I personally like it.
Okay. Anybody else 1 o'clock? Everybody, so I'm gonna plan on 1 o'clock.
That's fine
then?
with me.
Okay, great. All right, so we will plan on 1 o'clock. Those people who said that they are willing to serve on different committees, and there'll be an email that goes out, and we will get a chance to follow up with that.
Linnea.
Yes.
Just this has nothing to do with this meeting. Is Judge James and Colleen still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Is Judge James still on?
I don't see her in here anymore.
Okay. Linnea, can you and I and Colleen kind of hold back for a minute because I want to talk about Wayne County?
Yeah, or how about, can I send you all another little link?
Okay, that's fine. And
Sign out of this.
I was hoping Judge James was still on. Okay, thanks.
I'll send it to you in 2 minutes. Anything else? We're all good? All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you for the hard work. I know today was a little rough, but it's important to get there. It was good to see you. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will follow up with you guys. Yes, sir. I will add you to the list. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Linnea.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Have a great rest of the week.
I will. You too. Thank you, Ms. Lily.
I'm sure we'll be talking.
Yes. Yes, we will.